Well, good evening, everybody. It is Heidi at Hen Chicks Studio, and we are glad to have you here with us. So, welcome. We are located in Conrad, Iowa, if you are not sure where Hen Chicks Studio is. But as always, we love to have everybody, whenever we go live, tell us where you're from, where you're watching from, and making sure that we do know where you're coming from. And if you want to try that one more time, Virginia, because it did not click, we are here tonight to talk to you all about our Shout It Out Sew Along. So there's lots of details that we do want to tell you, but I want to make sure that the pattern, the link to the free pattern is up there first and foremost, so that you can go and download your free copy of the Shout It Out pattern. All you have to do is click, if you're on Facebook, you can write sold and 101, and it will send you a message. You can add it to your cart. You can go directly to our website, type in Shout It Out. Wherever you want, you can get the free pattern for Shout It Out. And I'll just put up here, the website address is at the bottom of this page. If you go to henandchickstudio.com/shout it out, all one word, you are going to find everything that you need to know about the whole sew along, everything from the download of the free pattern to the link for uploading your free your finished top when that time comes as well. So lots of details. Tonight is technically the kickoff of the first of 4 videos that we will be doing for the Shout It Out Sew Along. And I have to start by saying that I'm very sorry that we are not able to have Sarah Maxwell with us this evening. Something came up that she could not skip, miss, whatever word you want to put it, for herself. And let me just say that we all know how difficult life can be. And so I said, you know what, Sarah, take care of yourself. And I know at some point we'll get her on here and talk with her more. She's the designer of the pattern that we're using. So Sarah J. Maxwell, she's the designer of the Shout It Out pattern. But I get it. And you know what? It's okay. And life goes on, and we will hopefully fill the time with some information that will be beneficial to you tonight. So the whole goal of tonight is to give you some information about selecting fabric. I'm taking a little bit different approach tonight and making sure that we I'm going to say, have a little bit of education. I am going to use some of the quilts in the store to give examples of the kinds of things that we're talking about here tonight, but I wanted to talk about the 3 C's. Does anybody have an idea of what the 3 C's might be when it comes to fabric selection? You can put some stuff in the comments if you'd like. We love it when you're talking to us. I try to keep up, and I see people are telling us where you're watching from. So wonderful, wonderful. I've got, it looks like Missouri and South Dakota and Minnesota. Maybe I see some Iowa. Absolutely. Those are coming along. So of course, you can always add in the comments anything that you want about the 3 C's of selecting fabric. All right. So what are the 3 C's? Well, they're contrast, color, and character. And that's what I'm going to dive into a little bit this evening, and hopefully give you some hints and tips about ways that maybe you could pick fabric for this project or for any project that you are working on. Okay, so let's start with the first one, and that is contrast. Okay, contrast has to do with value. Is it light, medium, and dark? So I have a box of fat quarters. It happens to be the songbook collection that we have here. And I thought for some interest, we would be able to pull some fat quarters in different combinations and kind of show you some examples of the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Then we will talk about a couple of the quilts behind me, as well as we're going to move one time and show you a few more quilts. So, okay, so Contrast, its value, light, medium, and dark. So I might pick a light, a medium, and a dark. Okay, so here we have a light, a medium, and a dark. So this is a great way to start discussing what contrast is. If I were to put these in a quilt together in any combination, in any order, you are going to be able to see the design that you've picked. So contrast helps clarify the design and helps give depth to the quilt, right? So if you have these two pieces next to each other, you're definitely going to see the pattern. I like to use the example of I am drawn to antique blue and white quilts or red and white quilts. Well, those are high contrast because they're two color and it's a light and a dark. And those are definitely places where the value and the contrast shows up, okay? So how do you visualize contrast? Like if you're starting to pick fabrics and you're like, is that, is there enough contrast? Let me just pick out a different color. So here I've picked out a slightly more tan pattern of the fat quarter rather than the light that I had there. Is there enough contrast? Okay, so a couple of things that you can do to see if there is contrast in your fabrics is squinting. Maybe I'll take my glasses off and have things be a little blurry and try to, squint and say, can I see the contrast? That's probably not my favorite thing to do. I'll tell you what my favorite thing is to do in a moment, but you can also use a reducing tool. That would be like, think of what you look through in a door. So if you're in the motel and you are looking out to see who's in the hall and they have a, excuse me, would you go and grab my drink for me? Thank you. Thank you. If you're looking through that hole and it's reducing it, you are getting some distance between you and the fabric. And that is important, okay? And then, of course, red cellophane. There's a variety of products out there these days in the quilt market. I don't happen to sell any of them here, but if you were to put like a red filter over top of these fabrics, you start to see that maybe these two are more of a similar value and this one's dark, but it helps define that contrast. But my favorite tool is actually my cell phone, okay? And why? One, when you put your camera on the image, you're automatically, I'll say, using a reducing tool, right? So you're getting a little bit of way from the fabric and you can start to see the difference. But even better, one of the great ways to talk about contrast, excuse me, is to actually use black and white photos. Well, it is so simple on today's cell phones to be able to change your 4-color image into black and white that you kind of have it all built in. So if you have a cell phone with a few photo capabilities, you will be able to use that sort of reducing quality that I'm talking about with the reducing tool, and then even change it to black and white so that you can more clearly define, are these two similar in value, or do you need something that's more a high contrast of maybe a lighter piece to make that contrast? All right, so that's just some simple tips about contrast. Color. Also, the word hue is used in place of color a lot of times. So people will say the hue of a quilt. It's still color, right? All right. So if contrast is objective, light, medium, dark, right? That's objective. Color is much more subjective and can actually be emotional because some people react to a certain color in one way. It can be calming, it can be vibrant and energizing. It can be soothing, it can bring back memories, certain colors, or that kind of thing. So color is, again, more subjective and emotional. There's so many different things that we could talk about color. I'm not going to get into color wheel theory and study tonight. There's definitely books out there if you really want to go with that. I'm going to give you what I think is the more practical way to think about color. Like if you struggle with picking colors, I suggest you look around you, right? And you say, what am I wearing? What are the colors in the garments that I'm wearing? What are the colors in my home decor? What are the colors in my surroundings that I like or that I react to? So for example, if, let's say you're taking a family photo and you've got one person dressed in dark denim and one person dressed in light denim, one person maybe with a flare of red on it, you are going to start to see the contrast that we're talking about and, and see the colors come through. But if you like that look in clothing and in a photo, you might very well like that look in a quilt. So I think it's important to say, if I like this in person, like if I really like the stripe on me, the white and the black and the green, if I like this combination, maybe I'd like that combination in a quilt as well. Okay. And so, and I'm so sorry, Angelina, that the sound is echoing. I don't know. I don't have anything that we're doing differently than we normally do. So I hope that, hopefully that will settle out for you and that it's just a cell phone issue. And so if there certainly is anybody else with some feedback on the sound, by all means, give us a shout out there. But I don't know what it is exactly that I can change at this very moment. But as you can imagine, we would like it to be as clear as possible for you. Okay, so let's go back to color for a second. Another suggestion I always have when you're talking about color is that you start with a main color that you love. At the end of the day, it's always going to be your quilt, whether it's the shouted out quilt or any other quilt. It's going to be your quilt and you have to love it. So if you start with a color you love, it's going to absolutely end up being a color that you're happy with. Now, of course, I'm going to use, again, I'm going to pull out a different piece. So say, for example, that I decide that this print is what I want to use as the main fabric in my quilt. Well, then I can absolutely use this as a starting point for the other colors that I'm going to put into the quilt. So I might add the teal, the gray, the coral, the green, kind of the gold color. I can all of a sudden start to add those. Now, the beauty of a collection of fabric is that they normally have put those colors together for you and you don't have to do anything extra. So again, I have the whole box right here, right, of this particular collection. I'm just going to hold it up. And can you see in there? Can you see those, Virginia? All of a sudden, all of those colors go together because they have designed it that way. So it does make it easier to be able to pull out fabrics and say, I really like what they've done with those. And I'm just pulling a variety here so that I can give you a mixture. Oh, let's go ahead and still pull this guy. So all of a sudden, you see, I now have a group of fabric based on this main character here. And then I have the supporting actors and actresses over here. And that is something that you absolutely can work with, that main fabric, and use it as your color palette. So if you're nervous about picking fabrics or think, I don't know what I like or what I don't like, start there. Start with that main piece of fabric, okay? So that's something that's important. Now, when we talk about intensity of color, I want to make sure that people know that that is different than contrast. Contrast is this fabric is contrast to that fabric. They're different. Intensity can refer to how bright it is or how deep it is. So somebody might say, oh, this is a really intense piece of fabric compared to, oh, I'm gonna say we'll probably go around the corner, something that's paler and softer. It's gonna have a whole different feel. It's not intense. Okay, so there's things like that I don't want there to be any confusion that intensity and contrast are two different things. All right, let's touch on the third C, which is character. And I think this is the most funnest part of picking out fabrics, is that we are blessed to have a wide range of character of fabric so that you can really make a quilt that speaks to the person you're making it for or to yourself. So a print can be of the same color but look different because of different prints. So let me go back into my box again here. Let me regroup a second and let me grab, let's see here. That one's different. There we go. Okay, so here all of a sudden I have a color that is very similar, right? There isn't much contrast between those colors, but instead what is different between all of them is the character, all right? It's the character that's different. This one has leaves, this one has words, this one has floating flowers, this one has floating flowers. These are slightly different shades. This is tonal, this has butterflies, okay? So they have different patterns even though they're similar colors. So if you were to put these in a quilt, so say you loved the combination that I'm putting and you say, yep, that's what I want to make, shout it out. So in the pattern, I'm going to use this small diagram. Let's just say everything that's gray could be this shade and everything that is white would be this shade, or go completely to the opposite and say, I'm going to go really dark for my background, and these are going to be my this would be technically the light and these the darks, kind of thing. And you can have a very different look of a quilt. So the character of the patterns and the designs can start to speak to you. 3 words that come up for me when I'm talking about character are scale, mood, and style. Scale, of course, is talking about the size of the print's elements. So none of these are drastically different, but that technically is part of this one. This scale is bigger than, let's say, this scale. And there's gonna be a couple, I think, examples that we can show a little bit better. Nowadays we can find florals that are much bigger scale and then prints that are much smaller. So that's when we're talking about scale, we're talking about the size of the print and the elements that are in the print, okay? Mood, is it busy? Is it calm? Is it floral? Is it formal? Is it lively? Oh my gosh, the mood can really run the gamut. One of our regulars, Jan, was in here renting yesterday, and she had a quilt that I would describe the mood as being very, very artistic, very modern, but yet because it was a very different kind of a batik, not something that we carry here at Hen Chicks Studio, compared to if I pick all of these fabrics and put them into a quilt, it's going to have a soft floral version, a mood. You're going to have something very different. And then, of course, the style has to do, does it have contrast in it? Is it solid? Is it lively? Tonal? Is it striped? Is it check? Is it a large scale? Is it a novelty? Is it a repro? Is it abstract? And that's the word I was looking for Jan's fabric yesterday. It was a little more abstract. And often we can find fabrics that have the same contrast or the right contrast or the right color, but maybe they're not the right character. So for example, here, let me grab this. This will be easy to show you. This is a really cute camping fabric. Do you think the camping fabric has the right mood to go with these fabrics that's in Songbook? Probably not. Now, if you had a reason for adding that, okay, but it doesn't quite fit, right? Because this has got bears and mountains on it, and this has flowers and more inspirational words. Okay, so when you're talking about style, that is what we're talking about. All right, well, I'm getting some good sound feedback, so that is awesome, and hopefully whatever the problem was, that is getting fixed for Angelina. So that is wonderful. Okay, all right. So I'm talking about contrast, color, and character. Those are the 3 C's to picking out fabric and things that you can ask yourself. Now, I'm going to give you just a couple more tips for what to do if you're trying to figure all of those things out. Number 1, already told you my favorite thing, but just a reminder, photography, right? Take your camera, take a picture. Does it look good together as you're laying it out on the floor or on your table or wherever you're laying it out? And does it pass that test? Turn it to black and white. Does it pass that test? Get that distance. So even if you can't take a picture of it, walk away. I love setting things like on the cutting table, and then I go around the store and I'm finding another piece of fabric to fit in here or fit in there. And then I turn around and my eyes go directly to the stack of fabric, and I instantly have that feeling of like, ooh, that one sticks out, or no, it's all good together. You get a feel as you come back around the corner when you look at it, how is it going to play out in a quilt, okay? So walk away, turn back around, that kind of thing. And always, if you've been in the store here at all, you know we like to audition fabric. The fabric bolts are meant to come off the shelf, and we're meant to put things in and out, because that auditioning stage, that step of the process is very important, because you want to be sure that you are confirming what you do like versus what you don't like. And so, hey, is that red? Does it fit in? No, maybe not quite so much. And then you put that red and you go, oh, wait a minute, I do like that red. That's a good thing to do. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's why we have fabric here, and we'd love to get that fabric out and play with it and make sure that we're getting the right combination for you. And of course, a design wall is also a good tool. Again, it gives you the ability to step back and to have a little perspective of what you're working on. Okay? And all right, so we have, again, contrast, color, and character. Now, what I would like to do, and I didn't want to dismantle everything, because I do think that sometimes it's easier to see the quilts in their places on the wall, that kind of thing. So we are going to move the camera a little bit, so bear with us, and we'll try to keep you as steady as possible as we move you around. And we're first going to go over here to this side, Virginia. Virginia is my camera girl today. And this is a quilt that Jamie made. And you gonna come over here? All right. There you go. And love it. You can get up close. You can lean it down there and show the fabrics off because the sun on the window. All right, so we've got a camping. This is Loving Camp Life. As you can see, we have a very specific theme going on. So we know what the mood of this is. This mood is fun. We're going camping. She's putting it in her camper. She's going to be spending weekends with her family. It has got a mood just immediately with the fabrics. I would describe the fabrics as not having as much contrast. And I'm going to lay this down here, Virginia, and we are not giving you any, I'll say, clicks on these things. So if you are interested in any of these projects, we'll have to go to the website. But for tonight, I really wanted to focus on the fabric and not necessarily on the products. But just looking at this photo, again, I would tell you that the contrast is not as strong as in some quilts, simply because the style of the fabrics, they are not high contrast kinds of quilts. But the colors, oh my gosh, it has every color under the sun. But again, it's certain hues that are really pretty. Okay, so that's character. Now we're going to look behind me, Virginia, And this quilt is Garden Society. And you know what? You can bring the camera up close if you can. All right. Because even look at this block right here. Look at the character of these fabrics. Now, this is an entire collection of fabric. So they automatically, if you want to say, went together in the designer's eyes. But we've got a larger motif. We've got a stripe. We've got a high contrast pattern, a more tonal pattern. Look at this piece. That's very tonal. Now, we selected one background piece to kind of calm all of the fabrics in this particular collection, because it is scrappy. It's intended to be scrappy, but you can get the idea as Virginia backs up that it does have still some good contrast, but there's lights, there's mediums, there's darks. So you do get a lot of movement in the quilt and a lot of different play on that. Now, actually, can we just come to this one? We can walk this way. We can walk this way. All right. And I can't see the comments on the screen. So, of course, if you have questions, we'll have to try to answer them in a minute. But let's look at, this is Woolly's Picnic. And first of all, it's flannel. So when you start talking about the character of the fabric, the Woolly's, which is flannel, that's supposed to look like wool, I think automatically has some depth to it, right? And it has a feeling of it. I want to pet it, right? And in this particular case, when we were talking about, I'll say, prints and their scale, I don't think the prints in the scale in these prints is varied. I think they're all fairly similar in scale. And it's the color, it's the range of color that is giving you what we like about this quilt, rather than maybe in Garden Society, it was the different scales of fabric. Whereas this is, again, the dot is probably the loudest scale or largest scale, but the other ones have a pretty similar small scale. Okay. All right. Well, you come on over here, Virginia. And as you slowly go by, you can show these quilts. And then I want you to back up right here so that you can look at these three quilts as we go forward. And I'm just going to grab all right, we're just going to move over here. So thank you with this little move. And I've got my computer again. All right, you got that, Virginia, so you can get that set out. All right, awesome. Okay, so we are looking at 3 different quilts here. And we're going to start with the quilt at the top. Thank you, you're good. You got it all centered nice. So the quilt at the top is Sugar Cube Scrappy Crossroads. And that Sugar Cube collection, we've talked about this before if you've been watching any of our videos. It has, I'm going to say, more of a 30s flair. So all of a sudden, when we talk about the character and the feel, you can immediately say, oh, it's 1930s. It's got kind of a happy feed sack look. And we chose, in this particular pattern, to have a very high contrast. So now we're back to the contrast conversation of using that blue to really set off and pop those 30s prints. Now, the 30s prints have the navy in them, so it's not that it's out of question that you would use that. It's just that we probably put it in a much stronger way than some people might. We just had a long armor last week, Kim, and she posted her finished quilt on the creative community. So if you ever want to share a quilt, ask somebody their question, a question about your fabric selections, it's the place to do it. You can join our Facebook creative community. You just have to answer a couple of questions and we let you in so you can play with all the other people that are in there. But Kim chose to use a white background with her scraps, and boy, did it look like a completely different quilt. I'm going to say back to the conversation when I said that contrast helps clarify the design, okay? So let's think about this. This, in some ways, the X pops out, okay? Because the depth, this is where dark, light, medium, and dark, that creates depth, right? And to me, in this particular case, the blue pops out kind of thing. Sometimes you'll see that a dark fabric recedes, but for me, my vision, I see that it's popping out. But in Kim's, the pieced block pops out because of the choices that she made for the background. And I love being able to see what each of you does with choices like that. There is no right or wrong way to pick fabrics when you are selecting fabrics, because it's all personal choice. At some point, it is all a personal choice, right? Okay, so let's look behind us for a second, and I might need a little bit closer, Virginia. So why don't you just move a little bit closer so that we can see. So House and Home Sweet Confetti is on the right here, now in the center of your screen. And it is a much softer look of fabric. And again, I love the possibilities, right? We love to show all of the different possibilities. So this is House and Home Sweet Confetti. The collection of fabric is called House and Home, and then the pattern is Sweet Confetti, right? And it is a soft, very pale, low contrast collection itself. And then we used a darker blue for the binding, and we used this more medium shade of tan. So I describe this as a little bit less, it's not high contrast as it could be, but I feel like it's very warm because of the background and the shades that we've picked in that. And so that again, soft. And look at the scale of these prints. They're all small. This is a poppy cotton collection, and I think the poppy cotton collections seem to be pretty small. And in fact, right next to it is also a poppy cotton collection. And Virginia will just adjust there for you for a little, so you can see. This one is called Poppy's Patchwork. It's brand new. We just unveiled it, a week ago or so. And again, it's fun to look at how fabrics contrast. And I think in this particular quilt, it's fun to see that each sewing machine has 3 fabrics. So every sewing machine looks different because, like, to me here, the red is dominant. Can you see that one? So the red is dominant, whereas this is, I'll say has the lighter, it goes lighter. And yet then there's some where the stripe, that character of that stripe comes out, and I believe makes it stronger. And so here's a lighter sewing machine and a darker base. Again, all are correct. And again, I'm going to just show you the collection. Can you see that in there? And so to show you that we have sort of, the yellows, the pinks, the reds, the teal, or the greens and the teals. My gosh, we've got a lot of contrast. Now we chose in this particular quilt to use all white-ish prints. Some are a little more cream, some are a little more white. So whitish creams and whites that have small prints in them, some with a little bit of color, some with no color, and those are all what is being used in the background. So all of the sewing machines start to take on a different look based on what print is in the sewing machine. Now, we did use the Country Confetti Dot as the sashing in order to, I'll say, connect it. Instead of making all of these scrappy, that is what we chose to do. They could have also all been scrappy based on the amount of fabric that we offer in that particular collection. All right, can we back up one more time, Virginia? And let me get out of the way. And I would love, maybe it would be the best thing would it be to just stand in front of the counter here. I want to look at Practical Magic for a second. And here is a great quilt, a showing, and you could even maybe tilt this just a little bit. Let's see if I can do it without, there we go. All right, there we go. So you can see the quilt. This is Practical Magic Happy Trails, and both Scrappy Crossroads and Happy Trails are in the book. Scrappiness is Happiness. Practical Magic is a collection from Andover featuring Adita Sitar's work. She is the designer. And what I love about her collection of fabric is the scale of her prints. She has everything, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to try to point. all right, as best I can. Should I use my pen to point? Okay, I'll go. This one is a very low contrast tonal, very small scale print, very, very small scale. From a distance, it probably almost looks solid because you can hardly see the contrast. Next to it is actually a large floral print that we've cut up. And so it maybe doesn't look quite as large as it might if it were on the bolt, but it gives a completely different feel. Then there's also prints that are plaid. There's prints that have some extra color in them. Again, tonals over here. And then it's the variety of color. This is all one collection. We did not add other prints to it. It is, except for in the browns, in these little pieces in here, we did. But other than that, they are all prints from Practical Magic. And I think it very much shows what you can do with color and the variety of scale, contrast, all of those kinds of things. Okay. And Virginia, you stay right there. I'm going to grab the computer and make sure that we do not have any other questions that we need to answer this evening. But I think you can see me, correct? All right, we're good, as I say. And so one of the things that I guess I would like to encourage you is have some fun with playing with the fabric for Shout It Out. Some of you have already got it done. We love it. If you want to see what other people are doing and be inspired, you can absolutely go to that Shout It Out page that I was talking about. Okay, henandchicksstudio.com/shoutitout. And we've already started to post some of the pictures there, and we'll keep adding as they arrive. And so we'll get those on, keep getting those updated. If you're wondering, hey, is my collection of fabric that I've pulled looking good? Jump on to the creative community and make sure that you have the chance there to ask other people. You know, at the end of the day, it's still your decision, but it never hurts to either get some affirmation or some suggestions for improving it if you think that you have room for improvement. All right. So we would love to encourage you to absolutely use those two things to be able to find the right combination of fabrics to use in Shout It Out. Now, as a reminder, this is all free. The pattern is a free download this time. The videos are all free. They'll live on the webpage, just where I've been telling you to go. This will eventually end up there so that you could go back and watch it, as well as the next 3 weeks. Next week, I'll be talking about cutting fabric on Thursday, and that would be May 11th. The following Thursday, we'll be talking about piecing, and the fourth week will be all about the final process of finishing it. And I can't think of the date off. It must be the 25th or so in there. Is it the 25th, last day of school? All right, I should have known that Virginia would know that date on, can you believe that in that many weeks we're going to be done with school? All right, so I hope if you have any questions, never hesitate to call us. We're always glad to help. But until the next time we see you, be creative. Good night.